and welcome to the 26th episode of, Dust James Anti-Imperialist America. Um, I'm going straight live. I didn't share this out any groups or anything. Hopefully, folks will join me. Just want to take care of a few announcements before I start. I will be doing my show. Um, Not my. I'll probably be doing this show more during the week. I got my study on Saturday with David Fox, so that was postponed the last 2 weeks. Sorry about that. Me and David, comrade from Australia, David Fox, have been studying the three internationals, the history of three internationals by William Z. Foster, great American communist. Simple, plain language of big subjects that makes it easier to understand for working folks like myself and like David Fox. We are going to be continuing that study on the second part of, well, not, it will be the continuation on the section on the Third International. We're going to go from section 40 to the end of part 3. And we haven't discussed it. Probably the week after that, we're going to finish the book. There is a part 4, which is it's not really talking about an international, but it's talking about the revolutionary period, particularly around Mao. And David Fox put out an announcement video on his YouTube channel. I think, no, it was yesterday or today. I believe David Fox is going to start doing David Fox is going to start putting out lives. David Fox is going to start doing studies. David Fox is going to develop his own channel. So I need everyone who's watching, or everyone's going to be watching this, to go and subscribe to my comrade David Fox's channel. And if you haven't if you haven't hit the bell and then pushed all here, please do that here. Hit the bell and hit all. Also on David Fox's channel, subscribe, hit the bell, and hit all. Great comrade from Australia. I'm sure folks have enjoyed him doing our studies. We're going to continue doing that study this Saturday, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. On Saturday. Looks like I got a few people. I already got comments in. I'm having trouble right now. I am simultaneously broadcasting to Facebook and to YouTube. I see several YouTube comments. Shout out the Red Dundorian. Hi, Itzla Gatika. Hello. Atheist. Yes, hello. Red Dundorian, thoughts on 500K strong protests in Germany. I've heard of that. I don't know too much about that. Maybe I'll go over that at a later topic. I do have a good show prepared today. Also, I'm going to try to access the Facebook comments on my own page. I'm having trouble accessing myself live. Give me a second. I don't know if... There it is. There's me live. If I bring it up, I can see the comments. Awesome. So I can see the comments on Facebook here. I can see the comments on YouTube there. Albert Mendoza, thanks for joining me on Facebook. So now I have both live streams going, and I can look at both bit of comments. Today's topic is going to be a continuation on the concept of liberal feelings versus revolutionary materialist understanding. And I want to another quick shout out to Matt Cedillo. Matt Cedillo, along with Jose Prado, Dr. Jose Prado. He earned that, came up and earned that. Got to give it to him. Dr. Jose Prado and Matt Cedillo have doing this continuing study on Marx's Capital, and they do that every Monday. So I recommend folks follow. I think Matt Cedillo already has 5,000 friends, but his study video is public. So if you follow Matt Cedillo, you get notifications there. He has also graciously allowed me to host and archive his study here. So if you prefer YouTube, you can come here and watch those in order. Two brilliant folks from a strong materialist perspective, from the position, largely from the Chicano nationalists position, or at least Chicano understanding, applied through a materialist viewpoint. That study they're doing is amazing, and he made a great point today. And Matt Cedillo talked about how there's a stratification among the U.S. workers, and it seems to be the oppressed nations of Afro-America, and especially the oppressed nation of Chicanos, or the larger Raza population, are through a series of legal frameworks, social frameworks, end up in the worst jobs consistently. And these are skilled jobs, but they're called unskilled, so they're not given that money. So, and then white workers often have slightly better pay, slightly better conditions, but they're still exploited. So there is a feeling, there is a tendency in the United States for a lot of liberal, maybe white liberals, to I don't know, just to look at it from a feeling standpoint, like, oh, I'm white, I can't really say nothing, I'm just going to avoid that, I'm not going to say nothing. And it also is like, these are the folks that will show up to Black Lives Matter and like start kissing people's feet and stuff, or the people in Cary that like washed all the Black Lives Matter's feet. I mean, it's humbling and it's positive. I mean, it's bad imagery to the majority of the working class. Like, I don't think any worker should bow down before any other worker. But that's not what's the worst thing about it. This kind of white feeling, I'm not the bad. I'm not like a bad white person. It doesn't actually address the material conditions or the infrastructure, the political economic system that is keeping us all down. These white liberal feeling like movements can be manipulated, where you just buy something that says Black Lives Matter from Amazon, which is literally killing people in their warehouses by not giving them the proper equipment or the proper protection. You vote against Trump. But what is necessary and what will actually change things is to build as much power as possible to dismantle systemic racism, systemic national oppression, the actual framework of society that keeps poor Black and brown people down, that keeps oppressed nations down. This means to build as much power as possible from all forces as possible to dismantle monopoly capitalism and imperialism. That was a great bit on that study. I'll post that study here that he did today. And I recommend, Matt Cedillo is brilliant. Dr. Jose Prado is brilliant. Go back through and watch those on my channel or his. Great study. And that goes into a larger issue. And the enemy I say this stuff over and over and over again. The main enemy of all humanity is imperialism, monopoly capitalism. Both parties, Democrat and Republican, are equally complicit in these horrific crimes of the greatest enemy of humanity that has ever existed. I will simply state a few of those crimes. I'll start with the first two. The first two crimes in the recent decades, which are the worst humanitarian atrocities that have happened in the modern era, in the last few decades at least, and that's Yemen. Both parties, Trump, Obama, have been funding, fueling the warplanes to absolutely destroy the country of Yemen. The Saudis, which are a puppet regime, Saudi Arabia, a monarchy, where women weren't allowed to drive cars, where they behead people in public, a brutal, disgusting, autocratic regime, which is backed by the United States. Saudi Arabia is carrying out a horrific war against the people of Yemen. The amount of impoverishment that has existed, the outbreaks of cholera, the mass starvation, the mass famine. This is genocide, and both parties are complicit in this genocide. I'll move on. Libya. The bombing of Libya, the funding of terrorists, the funding of people who waved the flag of a monarchy to overthrow Gaddafi. Gaddafi, a socialist. Gaddafi, who irrigated the desert, who gave out home loans, who improved the standards of living in an African country, was brutally murdered by the Obama regime. I will mention this over and over and over again because you will not hear this on the mainstream media. Libya, what happened in Libya is an absolute travesty and one of the greatest war crimes in decades, and it was carried out by the Obama-Biden regime. Syria, Assad, the Assad government, Ba'athist government, Arab nationalist socialist government, secular government, some ties to Islam, but officially secular, improved the conditions in Syria. They grew their own food. They had their own infrastructure. And then the U.S., Obama and Trump, supported terrorists, are still backing terrorists. This is are backing terrorists to destroy the government and to put that whole region in the chaos. The actions of equally Democrats and Republicans alike are causing mass poverty, mass destruction for decades to come in whole regions. These people are absolute evil and disgusting. This includes Bernie Sanders is complicit in these imperialist aggressions. Bernie Sanders has voted for these wars. Bernie Sanders has called Maduro a tyrant. Maduro, who has stood strong against sanctions that are starving people. Democrats and Republicans alike are guilty of mass murder, of genocide, and it is happening right now. AOC wants to get mad because a backwards, disgusting, also imperialist person called her an inappropriate sexist term. But there is no civility. Why should she get to demand civility? Why is Barack Obama eulogizing a former civil rights leader who became an imperialist? How can these people who carry out mass destruction and death and genocide pretend to be civil at all? If we were to apply a tenth of the standards that they apply to the rest of the world for the humanitarian justifications to invade and destroy and bomb, they should be guillotined in the streets. Every single last member of Congress is one of the worst criminals in decades, almost in human history, from Bernie to AOC to the Squad to the Republicans, the Democrats, the alike of them are evil, disgusting war criminals who do not deserve civility. Not at all, not one bit. This brings me to my next point. I'm going to mention names because this is absolutely beyond the actions of comrades. I will mention names tonight. Bob Avakian of the so-called Revolutionary Communist Party has come out telling people to vote against Trump. He is essentially telling people to vote for Biden. This action is beyond what I would call comrades. I draw a line. And if you are backing the disgusting imperialist scum, you cannot be called a comrade. That is the line. You are supporting the imperialist, or are you against the imperialist? Now, I will work with people who vote Biden, maybe more liberal forces that are working in the street with us against positive issues. But for a group to call itself revolutionary and communist and to back the disgusting racist imperialist Democrats has crossed the line. You're no longer a comrade. You're a liberal like the rest of them. And I'll call out PSL too. They're doing good work. They're doing good organizing. They're running a third-party candidate. But they have said that they're not running against Biden in the swing states. They're effectively also backing imperialist, racist, architect of white supremacy, architect of the new Jim Crow. So let's analyze this. A lot of this claim is that Trump is a fascist. And I would say Trump has done many fascistic things. But the actions of the Democrats have been equally fascistic. Equally fascistic. And I will lay this out point per point. Let's talk about migration. Currently, under the Trump regime, Trump has carried out raids. Arguably, Obama carried out more deportations than Trump. But what Trump has separated families. Trump is not allowing refugees to come into the United States. So there is mass makeshift refugee camps with absolutely horrid conditions where drug dealers and narcos with U.S. guns are killing and kidnapping people. And there was diseases before, no sanitation conditions, and now corona is killing people in these makeshift refugee camps on the border that Trump created. genocide of indigenous people. Let's continue on the subject of immigration. NAFTA was passed by Democrats. NAFTA was an unfair trade deal that impoverished almost all of the entire corn belt of southern Mexico, causing the largest wave of migration from Mexico in the 90s. And then Democratic governors in the cities in the 90s put up a wall. Trump wanted a wall, said he asked for the wall, but the majority of the border, at least in city crossings, already had a wall or already had fencing on it because of the Democrats. And what has been the result of that wall on the border? People won't come through safe crossing. People first pushed out by Clinton's NAFTA and other trade policy and other wars by Ronald Reagan and the likes of them. Latin America has been destroyed by interventions, kept in poverty, kept in a subservient position because of unfair trade deals, intervention, Democrats and Republicans alike. So they built this wall, and what was the result? Hundreds of thousands of people dying in the desert. The continuation of the genocide against our native brothers and sisters. Indigenous people on this continent are still the poorest people on this continent. And the walls of the Democrats killed hundreds of thousands of them in the desert. This is fascism. This is a fascistic policy that the Democrats are in on and involved in. The Democrats are equally as fascist as Trump. Equally as fascist. Doesn't matter which way they speak or what they apply to, their actions, the material results of their actions is hundreds of thousands of deaths of indigenous people in the desert. I've heard my friends tell their stories of their family members who died in that desert. And I'm not going to vote for a fucking imperialist pig like fucking Biden. Let's talk about Standing Rock. Under Obama, water dogs, water cannons, water cannons with pesticide, with chemical weapons were used against indigenous people at Standing Rock under the Obama regime. The Obama-Biden regime used chemical weapons against indigenous protesters and used dogs against indigenous people. This is fascism. This is the continuing genocide of Native Americans. The Obama regime is equally complicit in fascist crimes as the current Trump regime. Let's talk about Trump's impeachment. Russiagate is a complete and utter farce. There was two positions to Russiagate, to Trump's impeachment. There was two positions the Democrat brought up. One of them had to do with accusations around Russiagate, which was a complete and utter farce. And this is a right-wing reactionary position against an anti-imperialist country. Russia is doing business with China. Russia is doing business with Venezuela. Russia is doing business with countries that the U.S. has set up sanctions against and is trying to starve out and kill and attack. Russia is firmly part of the Eurasian bloc. So this first position of the Democrats, impeachment against Trump, was from the right, was from a more reactionary, a more fascistic, a more imperialist position than Trump. The second component of the impeachment against Trump, this is where it really gets fucking crazy. Obama installed neo-Nazis, actually fucking fascist. Like people way more fascist than Trump were installed into power in the Ukraine by Obama. And what did they impeach Trump on? They impeached Trump because Trump, for personal reasons, who wanted to get dirt on Biden from the Ukraine, said to the neo-Nazis in the Ukraine, hey, I don't think I'm going to buy you these weapons if you don't give me some dirt on Biden. And the dirt on Biden was absolutely correct. Biden's son was involved in a company that was supported by the fascists that Obama put into power. And the impeachment against Trump was from the right, was from a fascistic point. They impeached Trump, the Democrats, the absolute disgusting imperialist, attacked another imperialist, Trump, from further right and further fascistic tendency. They impeached Trump because he almost didn't buy guns for fascists. So the impeachment against Trump was a call to support fascists. So we mentioned immigration earlier. It wasn't perfect, but the renegotiation of NAFTA that Trump was able to meet with progressive anti-neoliberal president Andrés López Manuel Obrador was better, was an improvement on what the Democrats did. So Trump was better on trade deals with Mexico. Trade deals that lead to the mass migration, that hundreds of thousands of people die on the border. Again, Trump was better on North Korea, and the Democrats again attacked him. Trump tried to take troops out of Afghanistan, and the Democrats wouldn't let him take troops out of Afghanistan. Are you fucking crazy? Trump and the Obama-Biden regime are equally fascist. Obama brutally suppressed Occupy Wall Street, just as Trump is sending troops out in the street to brutalize the Black Lives Matter protests. Obama sent thugs out to brutally suppress Occupy Wall Street, including signing the National Defense Authorization Act, which took away our right to a trial. If you're accused of terrorism, you can be killed, you can be murdered legally, you can be detained indefinitely, and this bill was signed into law by Obama, a fascist. When it comes down to it, the issue between tyranny and democracy is largely tied to stability. So it only makes sense in more unstable economic times. We have the coronavirus going on. We have a collapse because of overproduction, which coronavirus was the catalyst, that the state, regardless of who is the president, would become more fascistic. So even though he called to white supremacists, even though he came out as a racist coming down the elevator, if you look at the material actions of Trump, material actions of the Democrats, they're equally fascistic. And arguably, the Democrats are more effective at being fascistic, are more effective at carrying out mass destruction all over the world. So it only makes sense, as the system gets more unstable, that we'd have more fascistic policies regardless of the regime. Supporting that impeachment was a supporting of calling for more fascism. I'm going to quickly go over the comments and end it. Go through here on Facebook. So if we want to do something against this, we must build power and systematically destroy the systems that are allowing pigs to kill poor black and brown people in the street, and equally destroy and defund the military that's killing poor black and brown people all over the world. To do that, we have to demand all power of the people.